specific guitar parts and super specific guitar sounds, as is the case with Van Halen. You could have other people sing it, but it doesn't necessarily sound like the original ingredients, you know? Like Dave, at the height of his powers, nothing sounded like Dave and Van Halen at that point, you know? So to really get everything to be in the same wheelhouse, I think it would be really, really difficult to do it. But, you know, that's the thing. There are a lot of people that have played Van Halen songs over the years and do covers. There's a kid named Jacob DeRopp who is probably the very best at that, and he's an incredible player, and he knows all the songs note for note. He's got the feel and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah, that guy is amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, so there are a few people that have dedicated their lives to recreating what that feel is and that sound and that, you know, delivering that experience. But it's still a difficult thing when you're trying to say, how do you make it represent the life in music of Edward Van Halen, you know? If you don't rise to the occasion, then what, you know? I feel like everybody would be petrified to be in that position.
That's true. So now, you've obviously grew up being close to Steve Vai. What was your reaction when you found out Steve Vai was going to be in Dave's band after Dave left Van Halen?
Well, you know, the thing about that is it makes perfect sense in so many ways because Steve had a lot of technical ability and he was right place, right time for that whole thing. But at the same time, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. He was put into that kind of role and he himself knew that he couldn't do what Ed did, so he didn't even bother to try. Even when they played Van Halen songs, Steve rarely played exactly what Ed played. He changed so many parts. At that point, yeah, they're playing a Van Halen song, but it doesn't sound like Van Halen. And it made perfect sense for that time and for what they were doing. But if you're talking about a tribute version, I feel like most people, most real fans of Ed's playing, want to hear somebody step up and play exactly what Ed played, or as close to their ability as possible.
Sure.
That's just my opinion.
Do you know Dave?
I've met Dave on several occasions. I don't know him really well at all, but I mean, I've been inspired by so many things he's done, and he has been somebody that has taken things to such a level, really, again, at the height of his ability. If you look at the videos from Oakland, Unchained, Hear About It Later, So This Is Love, that version of Van Halen right there is untouchable. And Dave on stage and the way that he could handle the crowd and all that stuff, you look at that, and then you also look at the Selland Arena stuff that you can see that footage from their second tour. I mean, he's absolutely on fire. But the thing is, only 2 years before that, no one wanted to sign Van Halen. Nobody wanted what they were offering. You look at that and you go, how could nobody want that? The point is, he became something so much larger than life and did something that nobody else could do. In the same way, he was as influential to people as Edward Van Halen in his own way. He's just done a lot of super creative things, but he really was a hustler. He was really one of the guys that made that all happen. You know, if you read that Van Halen Rising book, it's fascinating to see what it was like for them and how hard they worked. You can't not respect what Dave did and how hard he worked to do the things that he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think he put Ed on a very large stage in the sense that he kind of brought the bigness, he kind of brought the more commerciality and brought Edward to the forefront so the world could, you know, really see him. I mean, Ed's talent is Ed talent. Dave has no responsibility for Ed's talent, but I think Dave realized how insane Ed was even at a very young age. Like, that guy was like a genius even as a young man, and that he did whatever he could to show that off. He brought Ed to a larger place. I mean, there's so many guitarists out there that are talented, but to have that kind of spotlight, I think a lot of that spotlight and heat came from Dave demanding that it be put on the band. Now, in terms of your podcast, do you have a definitive amount of episodes that you are planning, or is it going to be ongoing?
It's originally scheduled to be 30 episodes, but I think we're going to end up with a few more episodes because we're finding other people people that we're interested in talking to. And there sometimes episodes get split into 2 episodes because the conversations are longer than what somebody could sit and listen to in one listen. But there are a couple other things that are going to take place, like I'm going to do an episode on the reverse engineering of Edward's guitar sound, and it'll be very different than other similar things that have been made along those lines, because I have a different perspective on what makes the sound the way that it does, and what different ways you can do it, even without the gear that Ed might have used. So I think it'll be fun and interesting and fascinating when we get to do that episode.
Well, we look forward to it. Dweezil, thank you so much for your time. For everybody who wants to check out Dweezil's podcast, you have to go to dweezilzappa.com. So it's DWEEZILZAPPA.com, and you have to sign up for it. It's like a subscription base, correct?
Well, there's different ways that you can enjoy the podcast. You can listen to episodes individually. They're all part of a pay-per-view kind of experience. There's a lot that goes on into these things, and some of what we do is also generating money for 2 of Edward Van Halen's favorite charities. That's the thing about this. There's actually 3 different bundles. There's one that's called the Early Years, which gives you access to all the episodes about the early years. Then there's one that's right here, right now, which would give you access to all of the Sammy Hagar era. And then there's the 5150 bundle, which gives you access to everything, including the episode that I was just mentioning with the reverse engineering stuff. But in any case, you could choose at any time to buy any single episode. If you only wanted to hear the Nuno Bettencourt episode, do that. So it's flexible in terms of how you can check it out, and it's streamable, downloadable, and it's all at DweezilZappa.com.
Absolutely. And can you give us a little sneak peek as to guests coming up? You mentioned Billy Corgan, you mentioned Brian Kehoe, Greg Renoff. Is there any other ones that you have in the can?
Yeah, Mark Tremonti. We talked about the Diver Down album. I spoke with Jennifer Batten about the 1984 album. Those things are coming up, but what we are in the process of is trying to get back onto the production schedule. I got a little thrown off because I had a computer problem for a couple of weeks. It slowed me down with production, so I'm trying to get back onto the weekly release of episodes. They typically are released every Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time, but I'm trying to get a couple more done before we jump back onto that actual schedule so that I can stay on target. There's a lot of additional stuff. I've talked to Neil Sean and George Lynch and a couple other people that will be part of a collective episode that does like a bit of a wrap-up of all the early years. We're going to be getting into finishing out the early years with all the early first big 6 records, and then there'll be some stuff that kind of wrap up that era and bring us into the next era with the Sammy years. There's a lot of stuff that's in production right now. There's a lot of episodes I'm working on, all at once here.
Absolutely. Well, we certainly suggest that our listeners pick up the 5150 bundle. That's the one I got. It's the all-inclusive one. Everybody who listens to our cast is definitely a diehard. So you definitely want to do this, and I want to tell everybody that I am not a guitarist. I wish I was, but even though you're not a guitarist, you can still enjoy it. It's not some sort of tech-heavy podcast, although they get into the weeds on the recording and the playing. It is definitely listener-friendly for all VH fans, and it really is really well done. Dweezil, we want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for, the kind words about the podcast. The thing that all of us who are fans of the music have in common is the music itself. We all love it. And there's certain levels of detail that we get into, and some people know much more, and some people are just more about describing the feeling about it all. But I think, like you said, the goal is to just make it be something that you can enjoy and learn some new things. I think the Nuno Bettencourt episodes, like we were talking about before, those are the ones that really take it to a different level for the Fair Warning record, because that's my favorite record, so I really wanted to do something special there. If anybody's wanting to really check out any episodes, those might be the ones to jump into.
Whoa! How about that? Check us out on Facebook at Dave and Dave Unchained, a Van Halen podcast, on Twitter at DD Unchained, on Instagram at DD Unchained Podcast, and you can email us at ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello?
Hey, I didn't hear the phone ring, and then for some reason, whenever I call you back on FaceTime, I always call Danny.
Oh, my God. And he's texting me, what the fuck?
I know. I just deleted the number from my contacts because it happens every time.
Oh, God. You're unbelievable. You piece of work. All right. So am I calling you back on FaceTime?
This is FaceTime.
Oh, this is FaceTime. What the fuck am I talking about? All right. How are you? Oh, my God. You are nuts. Okay. You ready?
I know. Sorry.
Tell me it's all right. Tell me when you're ready. Here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
He's like a fucking opera singer. Okay. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the bass guitar, Wolfgang Van Halen! So did I tell you Florida was a good time, Wolf, or what? Huh, brother? Yeah. I was telling him earlier back then, I said, you know what, Wolf? There's only two things about Jacksonville you got to watch out for that are really, really bad for you. And in fact, I think I saw him flirting with both of them right before the show. Isn't that? Look at the smile on Elle's face. We actually have a lot of friends who live all over Florida, particularly in this town here. In fact, the woman that Alex loves is here tonight. The woman who dominates Alex's dreams. The woman who drives him erotically out of his fucking mind is here tonight. And your wife is here also, isn't she? Yeah.